Crack-a-lackin', everybody. Money Smart Guy Matt Zapala here, hailing to you from Dallas, Texas. And welcome to another episode of the Millionaire Goals podcast. Episode Deuce. In studio with me today. Home team. What's going on? Milton, Alvarez.
Come on, baby.
By the way, how we feeling, man? We did the Murph workout on Monday from 10 to like 1 o'clock for our tribute to Memorial Day. How's your body, bro?
My legs are shot, man. I think it was more the pressure, knowing that I work with the majority of your team, and I had to finish. There was a lot of eyes on me, so that definitely pushed me, man.
Hey, a big shout out to the Money Smart Movement team here in Dallas, Texas. Super proud of you guys. I was impressed with a lot of our ladies and a lot of our guys that showed up. They may not have hit the gym in a minute, but they showed up, and it was a tough workout. If you guys don't know anything about the Murph workouts, it's a workouts by Medal of Honor recipient and also deceased veteran, Lieutenant Michael Murphy. If you ever watched the movie Lone Survivor, it's the guy that died at the top of the hill trying to get his satellite phone to call in for air support and for an exfil extract. So anyway, that workout is dedicated to our fallen heroes, our fallen warriors, which is inspired by Lieutenant Michael Murphy. Basically, it's a 1 mile run. Mm-hmm. Okay. By the way, I was wheezing right at the half mile mark, right? And then when we get back to the studio or back to the field, we had to do 100 pull-ups. It's 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and if you're able to do 10 here and 20 here and 30 here and have it all add up, you wrap it all up with another 1 mile run
to finish off, man. My legs were numb at the end. It was a great time, though, man.
Still gas, man. But salute to our guys. And for our families out there, again, for this Memorial Day weekend, our families, our hearts are with you. For those who have your sons, daughters, husbands, wives, gave the ultimate sacrifice for the country's freedom and our beautiful country, the United States of America. God bless your families and our Gold Star families. All right, in this episode today, episode 22, we got an interesting set of topics here. We've got parents taking in their 20-year-old kids to live with them. We've got Barbara Corcoran, who's a shark on Shark. They're talking about, I may be a shark on Shark there, but I never saved a dime. We'll unpack that. We've got muscle loss associated to alcohol consumption, what people feel about Christianity in mega churches and celebrity pastors, celebrity culture, and we'll unpack that too as well, because a show I watched back in 2013 called The Preachers of L.A. is back again in 2023, which is pretty interesting. So they highlighted these pastors or preachers of L.A., man, and the 6'4" Chevy Impala's rolling, and man, these guys are pimped out and decked out, and a lot of people had reactions to it. Kirk Franklin said something pretty profound about that show a minute ago, and we'll discuss that on the show. But why don't we kick off our episode 22 here with some blind reaction videos. Jordan, why don't we start off with the first one of the problem of being a father. What's up?
If a man is at home all the time and he's the breadwinner, that's a bad sign. And the problem with being a father is you can never get it 100. If I give you time, we don't have money. If I get the money, you don't have me. I can't be there and earn a living at the same time. I'm limited. And I have an obligation to make sure your life is better than mine. The difficult thing about being a father is that everybody wants it now. The kid wants it now. The wife wants it now. The job wants it now. The opportunity is now, because in your early years are your earning years. All the things that you call normal are miracles. Your normal is your daddy's miracle. But the reason you don't see it is because it's normal.
I'm thinking about my parents coming here from the Philippines. If my parents didn't make a decision, my father didn't make a decision, I'd be raised in the streets of Manila on a jeepney. God knows what I'd be doing right now. If it was my mom's, I'd be raised in a farm with goats and chickens and fish ponds in the backyard in the countryside in the Philippines. I mean, their wealth in the Philippines is normal in America. I mean, some of the wealthiest people that live in the world live in America. They don't even appreciate what they have here in America. When you first saw this, have you seen the movie Fences with Denzel Washington? How he's talking to his son.
Oh, when he started confronting him on the outside.
You think I'm doing this because I love you?
Yeah.
Oh, what is he, right? When Denzel says to his son, you think I'm working and busting my tail because I love you? No, it's my job as a man to do this for you. I don't care about you thinking that I love you. It's my obligation as a father to provide for you, put a roof over your head, and to set that example. And when Bishop T.D. Jakes here talks about if a man is just sitting at home, not doing nothing, playing video games, idle time, waiting for things to happen, instead of making things happen, that's a bad sign you give to your son. Because guess what your son and your children are going to see? Yeah. That example.
Exactly.
What's your thoughts?
Completely. I think from the ages of, when they're born, of course, and when they, kids start walking, around the ages of 3, 4 years old, up to the age of 6, 7 years old, everything your child sees, what they listen to, what they watch, what they read, the environments that they're in, they're going to mimic that. That's how they're going to be wired for the rest of their lives. And if they're being brought up in a position where they see the father consistently just hanging low, hanging out, not really doing much of the work, not taking the leadership role on in the family, most likely they're going to end up in the same exact position.
Yeah.
And you're not setting a good example, especially if you have a young man. And here's the thing, a lot of men nowadays, they don't want to take on that role of having to be the one to put your life down on the line, to sacrifice, so that way the coming generations are the ones who are going to receive the fruit of your work nowadays. A lot of people think, I'm working my tail off now, but I don't see any fruit. There's no purpose behind it. I'm just going to chill. Yeah. Not knowing that all the work that you're putting in now, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for the generations to come.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine, John Rulin, we did an interview a while ago he's got a book called Giftology. I've got a set of steak knives at the house. Every time I cut my steak, these steak knives says exclusive made for the Zapala family. And this is a love gift from my buddy, John Rulin. Mm. And again, check out his book, Giftology. Anyway, he invited me a couple weeks ago. He was flying into Dallas because he was speaking at a conference. And Jesse Itzler was there. So if you guys don't know who Jesse Itzler, he wrote the book, 30 Days Living with a SEAL. And that Navy SEAL was David Goggins. Mm. So it's funny, the side story, we had our conferences 5 years ago, and we had David Goggins at our conference, and then the flip side, Guy Tons, had Jesse Itzler. So it's so weird how these guys came together. Anyway, Jesse Itzler, back in the day, he was a rapper, right? With Kid and Play, same record company. And anyway, make a long story short, he says, my dad gave me billions, but not financially. And think about this. This man didn't know that his son would be a billionaire. And then his daughter, she created the product called Spanx. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at what you're giving this next generation, is that even though he may financially not give billions, he might be working towards it, but what you're really giving is a work ethic, an example, because he took that from his father. My dad gave me billions in terms of work ethic and spiritual awareness and who I was as a man, but when it comes to finances, very little. But I took those values and principles and mindset and work ethic, and I created Zyco Water, which is that, Zyco water, coconut water. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. He created that company. He created a air jet company, and he became a billionaire because his father gave him lessons that he can take into his life. So if you have guilt as a father, the problem with the man is the guilt we have sometimes that we're constantly having to provide, especially in a world where inflation's high, interest is high, it's hard to make ends meet. For the men out there making ends meet, I want you to know we want to encourage you. Pat on the back for the Money Smart Guy. Pat on the back for the Millionaire Goals podcast. I want you to know that what you're doing out there is noble. It's right. It may not make you rich. That's why you got to find out where you're going to spend your time and energy. It's to make sure whatever time and energy that goes by, you get the most investment for that time and energy that you invest into this world. But we want you to know, man, if you're out there, you're working, you're making an honest wage, you're doing the example by setting forth that that work ethic for your children, pat on the back from us. Which leads us into the next reaction video, which is a NYU marketing professor says work-life balance is a myth. Let's take a look at this.
You can have it all. You just can't have it all at once. And while we all know that guy or gal who has a great relationship with their parents, is in amazing shape, has a flu blog, donates time at the ASPCA, and is a DJ on the weekends, assume you are not that person. If you expect to be in the top 10% economically, much less the top 1%, buck up. 2 decades plus of nothing but work. Ooh, that's my experience.
That's right. By the way, what did we say last podcast? 20 years of no big mistakes.
Yeah.
because there's the opportunity to make ends meet. So back to his point, he edifies the point made by Bishop T.D. Jakes. Says, listen, everybody wants it right now.
Yeah.
This guy's saying 20 years. Backstage, Ed Slott, he said, man, if you do the right things over and over every day for the next 20 years, then you'll be an overnight success. Then everybody's going to know your name.
20 years,
but
man.
for 20 years, nobody's not going to know you. They're going to know of you, but not going to know about you. What's your thoughts here now that you're kind of like you're like in this middle, right? You're not in your 20s anymore. You're not in your 40s yet, but you're definitely in your 30s.
31, to be exact. 31 years old. I think for a lot of this younger generation, even the older
High
crowd,
credit score, cash in the bank, got a successful business. See, I'll be your Jerry Maguire,
I
bro.
appreciate you, bro. Thanks, man. You'll be the main speaker at my wedding. I think nowadays that's one of the downfalls of social media. You jump on social media, you see an Andrew Tate, you see people of influence, you see people who are leading a certain movement, and you see the cars, you see the fame, you see the money, you see a lot of these younger men, you see the women, you see the luxuries, and immediately all you see is that face of what they have, and automatically you have a lot of these gurus online talking about, we have this program, we have this system, we have this blueprint that if you follow this for the next 3 to 4 months, you're going to be generating XYZ amount every single month, and you'll become a billionaire, or not a billionaire, but a millionaire within the next 24 months of your life, not knowing the amount of work that it actually took to be able to attain what they actually had. They think overnight success is so attainable because of what social media shows completely off.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I spoke on not that long ago on one of my videos that I posted on social media was, if you don't have if you haven't reached the goal that you're trying to reach, whether it's, I don't know, it could be $1 million in the bank, it could be $1 million cash flow, it could be have $1 million home, whatever the case may be, on a financial level, physical level, whatever the case may be, you don't have time, and you shouldn't have the energy to have a work-life balance. If you don't have what you want when it comes down to your vision, your mission, or whatever the case may be, you need to be able to throw every ounce of your energy, your time, and your money at that specific goal if you haven't reached that specific thing that you're trying to reach. Because if not, if you try to take away from that and you think that there needs to be a work-life balance, you need to have a balanced life consistently, and I'm only going to work about 4 or 5 hours a day, and then the rest of the day I'm going to have leisure time, you're not going to be able to attain your goal in the time frame that you should be attaining it. And the unfortunate thing about that is that people are counting on you, your family's counting on you, your wife, your kids, and even your external family's counting on you to take that move. But most of all, God's waiting on you. God's waiting on you to take that step forward, so that way you can explode out of that cocoon that we all have, of comfort zone, so that way we can have a bigger impact in this world, man.
I talk about work-life integration, involve your kids in what you're doing. I was a single father, 3 kids. Even though I'm married now for the last going on 9 years, I didn't have that luxury for 12, 14 years. I was a single dad, making things happen. And one of the best things that my kids say, I said, hey girls, listen, Ruben, when your dad was coming up, I was in a much different financial perspective than I was today. When Jordan was born in 2019, I brought the kids downstairs. Listen, kids, don't be jealous going forward. Don't be jealous of a younger brother, because he'll have much more access to options, opportunities, and things and technology than you had when you were in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. So please don't be jealous, because your dad was in a much position 20 years later when you were being raised than I was now raising your now youngest brother. And so they understood that. And so yesterday, what were we doing yesterday? So yesterday, weird times I just had lunch by myself, right? I was zigging and zagging. I'm like, oh, I'm freaking hungry. Hadn't ate all day. Typical entrepreneurial day, right? And I grab a quick lunch, grab some buttered chicken and rice.
That's fantastic. That's great, man.
Next thing I get a FaceTime, right? And I think it's just one of my daughters. I look at the phone. Next thing it's all 3 of them. They're having a conversation about one of the relationship my daughter's in, and they want my opinion on it. Think about that, to be involved in your children. Hey, Dad, what do you think about this? My sisters, this big brother Ruben, my sister doing this. I give him my insight, and I say, you know what? Let's call it Dad, because he'll probably come and bring a different perspective none of us are even thinking about, right? By the way, where did they learn this stuff from? I wasn't this guy 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago in their life, but they just remember all the stuff when they were kids, and how they were raised in entrepreneurship, and how they were raised in the church, how they're raised in the grind, because I integrated them into everything I got going. Because, again, I said earlier, work hard at the right things. If you're going to invest time and energy and money, make sure it pays off. Make sure that it's something you can control later on and hand down to your children. And so, for them to call me yesterday, it was a big revelation to me that I told him, Milton, I said, the older you get, because, there's a phase there they're demonizing you. Your daddy doesn't know anything. I said, the older you get, the smarter I become. I think that's starting to pay off now, bro. just a little bit. And so, we're all going to be together for my son's baby shower, because I'm going to be a granddad in August, September timeframe. But
Ruben's gonna be a dad.
Ruben's going to be a dad. Wow. Ruben's going to be a dad. So he's got a daughter that's coming in August, September. So shout out to my son Ruben out there in Denver.
Congratulations,
Colorado.
man.
Yep. So and shout out to my twin daughters to involve me in the conversation. I love you, and I appreciate you integrating me into your daily lives. And again, the younger boys, to not be able to be under the thumb of corporate America. You just got to figure out what your work life is going to be about. Then you can figure out whether it's going to be balanced or it's going to be integrated. I chose integration because then there's involvement. And, as an entrepreneur, if you can employ your kids as part of your business, you can pay them, I think it's like $13,000 a year without having to pay tax on it. So we funnel all their money, either they buy things for them through that, or we put into through their salary, it goes into their future college funds or future business accounts. Let's go to the next video. When we're talking about marriage and building a family, men now don't want to marry anymore because they feel the losses and risk outweigh the benefits. Let's take a look at this.
Men don't want to marry anymore because the risk outweighs the benefits.
Come from girls,
There's a risk that comes with marriage that essentially only benefits a woman. A man marries you and can only hope that one day you don't wake up and say, I feel like I don't love you anymore and I want to leave and you can't do anything about it. According to ASA, 70 to 80% of divorces are initiated by women. Among college-educated women, it jumps to 90%. You know what's crazy? I mean, a lot of us women don't have anything a man actually wants that we can bring to this.
Bro, first of all, I was surprised that it was a woman. By the way, these are all blind reactions. I was surprised it was a woman saying this.
Yeah.
And so, what are the risks? Let's unpack the risks. Let's be open. Let's be transparent about what are those risks about, if we can boil it down to maybe 3 big risks all men think about when getting married. Okay, number 1.
I would say divorce and then getting half of your stuff taken away
That's
from
it.
you.
Divorce, you spend X amount of years of your life towards this wife of yours, and then number 2, she takes half of it because the laws are tilted most likely to the favor of the woman, alimony, child support, those type of things. What's the third one? The third risk is she cheats on you, and you gave her your world.
Yeah.
Right? You gave her your world. Next thing you know, she's texting somebody else, she's DMing somebody else, interaction, cheats on the other side. That's a risk. That's a heart risk. It may not be a financial risk, may not be a title risk, but it's definitely a heart risk. I dealt with that. I remember going on a mission, man, and found out that my wife was cheating on me, and I remember taking a call on a payphone in a hangar. I just asked her a question. Did this happen?
Yeah.
And the helicopters are turned. My squad is in a helicopter waiting for it. Sapala, let's go. And I found out the answer. I physically, brother, I felt my heart drop to my stomach.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? I'm a man. I'm a freaking Marine about to go on a freaking mission. Why am I feeling this way? Welcome to being human.
Yeah.
And without, really processing, I just went on that mission, and probably the wrong mission to be on because now my mind completely wasn't on the mission. But thank God we came back safe. But that's the type of risk that a lot of men. By the way, for those of you in the comment section, what do you think the risks are for men? And by the way, let me flip it. And women. What are some of the risks that also women face when getting married? But I'll say this. Everything in life, including getting married, there's probabilities behind it, man.
Yeah.
There's risk behind every decision you make. There's a risk in going in business for yourself. There's a risk in getting married. There's a risk in going to college. There's a risk in not going to college. There's a risk in honoring your mother and father. There's a risk in not honoring your mother and father. Because sometimes we talk about honoring your mother and father, but you don't know my dad. You don't know my mom, right? I can't never forgive them. I can't never honor them. By the way, you thought you were honoring and forgiving them for them?
Yeah.
You're doing it for you. So therefore, you can live life with a clean heart, with a light load on your back, and you can go through life sprinting and running without having any drag and anything weighing you down. And so I'm just thinking out loud here. But what do you think some of the risks are? Or your thoughts, or what are some of the risks you think women face?
Well, let's turn it around to a different angle. What if we speak on, especially since you've been married.
Yep.
You're married now.
Yep.
Successful marriage. It's not perfect, but successful. Yep. You have your kids. You have your business. You're going down the path that you once thought could never be, but now it's happening, and you're walking under God's will. And I'm in a position where I'm going to stand still, working my business, building myself up, trying to trim the fat off my emotional intelligence and all this other stuff that I've built up over time from the pains, the heartbreaks, and XYZs. What are some, and I guess we can both share it, right? From a single guy, 31-year-old dude, and a married man who's already been there, done that, and has the life experience of it. Yeah. What are some things that young men, young women, or even men and women of any age who are still in that realm of trying to find someone or potentially calling it quits in their marriage, what are a couple of things that they can do or look for that will reduce the risk of the three things that we named, which is the divorce, the cheating, and
I think you ask. I think in the dating process, that's one of the most critical questions you ask in the dating process, because sometimes in the most relationships, obviously including marriage, primarily marriage, is that there's unrealized expectations, unmet expectations, because you never managed up front. They were never talked about up front. So asking the tough questions up front, for example, what's your feeling about marriages and divorce? Not just marriage, because we can be in this whole fantasy thing about getting married, but what happens when things are rough? For example, like praising God, not just when times are great, but you praise God when times are bad. Yeah. When do you praise God, right? When do you have the best friends around you? When times are great around you, or times when you're really rough and people are reversing course on you? Who still shows up as your friend? And so you got to ask these questions. What's your views on marriage? What's your views on divorce? What's your views on kids? How many kids you want? 1, 3, 5? Why that amount? What's your thoughts on finances? What's your thoughts on credit score? What's your thoughts on investing? What's your thoughts on us getting to the next financial level? So I think a lot of these things, and by the way, this happened a lot through arranged marriages back in the day. Yeah. Like there's wisdom back in the day of arranged marriages. Like we're not going to allow you to marry our daughter and vice versa unless there's a multiplication and unification factor when these two folks get married. Think about the chivalry and the ability behind that. The only way your daughter and my son are ever going to get married if you bring a financial contribution and unify the families together, so therefore we don't go to war. Yeah. That's how marriages were created. What are marriages for today? So that's what you have to process, whatever that definition is for you. For me, I want to create generational wealth. I want to make sure our last name lasts forever. I want to make sure that the people we produce as Sapalas are great citizens, are great contributors to America, that they're solution providers, not problem makers. These are some of the things that I envision for my family. And like, there's different Sapalas in different aspects in different facets of life. I want them to be able to say, like people say, that's a Rockefeller. Yeah. That's a Trump. That's a Bush. That's a Kennedy. I want them to be able to say one day, man, that's a Sapala.
So from the things you just spoke right now, I extracted three things out of it. Number one, being able to have a strong foundation in faith. Yeah. Because as we spoke prior to this podcast itself, this episode, if you can hold a strong relationship with God and your relationship with God can be at a good stance where you communicate with God daily, you read about God daily, try to get to know God on a consistent basis, and you're able to communicate, aka prayer, with an entity that does not verbally speak back to you, and you can still hold on to that, how much easier would it be to be in a relationship with a person who can actually communicate with you? But from that, you need the next two, which is emotional intelligence, know how to understand your emotions, know how to control your emotions in every single situation, and number three, having also a good communication skill set, knowing how to communicate how you feel, knowing how to communicate, how certain situations make you feel, and also knowing how to have open dialogue with your partner and not be on the defense at all times. Yeah. But the last thing, the biggest thing that I got from Matt is you need to have clarity. Have clarity on exactly what it is you want from the marriage, which direction you want it to go, and make sure that both parties are on a similar path, or if not on the exact same path towards a specific vision and goal. We have here a guy, Brandon Marquez. He said, men are scared of losing. When statistics show that marriages fail, men are built to be warriors. The thought of losing scares men as a whole.
Sure. We don't want to lose. Yeah. Because a marriage and a divorce signifies failure. Yeah. A marriage signifies victory. You don't want to lose that stuff. Whether it be finances, stature, title, whatever the case may be, and start all over again.
That's exactly what Laquan Butler said.
Laquan, what's up, Laquan?
Me, who already experienced a divorce, is scared of doing it again. It beats you up mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And that's the thing, a lot of men don't talk about that. They don't know how to express that emotional intelligence and knowing how to communicate. Laquan, man.
Yeah. And that's why communication, openness, and the weird word I'm about to bring up here, which a lot of men don't want to bring up, is vulnerability. Vulnerability to other men, vulnerability to other women. By the way, we got to be careful who you're vulnerable to, though. Yeah. I'm saying that word to you got to be very, very, very careful, or you're vulnerable, that they don't end up using that stuff against you as a weapon. Exactly. They don't weaponize your vulnerability against you. So, but you do have to find somebody that you're vulnerable to, whether it be a pastor or somebody that's objective, somebody that's maybe not anywhere close to what you're doing in business and your family or your physical or your financial life, you've got to find somebody that you can be vulnerable and they can shut it down. That's why having a therapist, having a faith-based type of psychologist helps you get through that. It's an underpaid profession, which is our mental health providers. We'll do the other two videos. We're just short here on time, but let's talk about, speaking of kids, let's talk about parents and kids. Let's look at this article. Excuse me here real quick. This article here in Fortune about someone in their 20s living with their parents and thrilled about it. Moving in with mom and dad isn't the rock bottom people think it is. So, as first headline, what's your initial thoughts on the headline?
I'm all for the struggle, man. Thrilled about moving back. I think 10 years ago.
So you're opposite with this headline.
I'm opposite of it, man. Okay. I would see that as a defeat in my eyes, personally.
Let's put in some context, because Aaron Crawley, a 28-year-old,
Jesus,
who moved in with her father and stepmother to save money and pay down her student loans, expresses how living with family has allowed her to allocate significantly more towards her loan payments. Living with family has allowed me to put my money towards quality of life goals. My costs are so low, I'm so lucky to have them, because she's got $41,000 in student loan debt. Another one in this article is Tana Patillo, who's a financial advisor at Vanguard, argues that while living with parents offers young adults the opportunity to create a financial plan while learning about adult financial responsibility, she emphasized that in today's expensive and challenging economy, those who have the support of their families are not in train wrecks, but rather individuals making the most of their increasingly untenable situation. But you, going back to your point, you believe in the heart.
Yes, exactly. I believe in the heart. I'm grateful for the struggle, man. And I wrote these three things down that actually got instilled in me during the struggle. And don't get me wrong, the struggle it sucks. It's hard. It's really uncomfortable. It makes you want to throw in the towel. It makes you say, woe is me. It makes you almost have that victim mentality. And you go to it, sometimes you can even go to a very dark place. But if you are approaching it with a different perspective and you're seeing on how it's actually adding to you, again, the concept of life doesn't happen to you, it's happening for you. And you approach a lot of these situations with that perception. Number one, it's problem-solving skills. Struggle often requires being able to find a solution. And a lot of these teenagers don't have that. A lot of these teenagers are very coddled. A lot of these teenagers are very entitled, and they're very overprotected by their parents. And because of that, they don't have life skills.
The participation trophy generation.
Bingo. So, in the midst of this, you're learning how to be able to analyze problems. You learn how to consider different options, and you develop effective strategies for solutions. And number two, self-awareness. There's going to be ups and downs in every aspect of your life, regardless of what decade you are living in. But these are going to be great opportunities to have a deeper understanding of your strengths, your weaknesses, your values, and the aspirations. This is a great way to be able to be guided towards personal growth and to be able to be informed on what's next in your future. And the third one is being able to build your confidence. The more adversities you go through and you're able to overcome them and you're able to get past them, you might fall, you might struggle, you might slow down, but every single time you overcome it is going to build your confidence to the next level, man.
I love it. Let's take a look at the other article, which kind of adds to that point.
Yeah.
Parents spark debate for charging teen $300 for rent and food each month. They even put it on TikTok. Well, why don't we take a look at what they said here on TikTok? Jordan, if you can put it up there.
All right, so y'all tell us, do you make your graduated high school student pay rent in your house if they aren't going to college yet? Tell us what you think.
Well, yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Because my thought is, and our thought together is that since Fred has graduated a couple of weeks ago, I told her, and I have been telling her for the last couple of months, that, hey, June the 1st, your rent's due if you're going to continue to live here.
I thought that was a little harsh. I mean, maybe a little leeway.
$200 a month is plenty cheap to live like a grub in your parents' house.
Yep.
I mean, that's cheaper than she eats in food.
Exactly. Well, it's $300 if she wants to eat
Anybody
here.
eats in food.
It's $300 a month if she wants to eat out of the fridge.
Okay, never mind.
It's $200 if she wants to buy her own groceries. So, what are y'all's thoughts?
Yeah, tell us what you think.
What do you think about charging your adult children rent if they're going to?
We think it teaches them a good lesson in paying bills.
If they're going to reside in your domicile, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts?
Y'all keep ranching.
Keep ranching.
Cool. By the way, I love this. I mean, they're looking for solutions, looking for a compromise. Look, by the way, look how mom was just like the mother hen.
Yeah.
My baby, she has a place to live, blah, blah, blah. But she's an adult child.
Yeah.
When are you going to let it go? But dad says, at least what? Charge her some rent. I bet you maybe it may have been 400, but he said, okay, let me bring it down to $200.
$200.
That's, I think, what the backstory is behind closed doors, outside when the camera's on. But I think these parents are trying to find a compromise. I'll tell you this, brother. I got twin girls, right? You know what my feeling is? My natural disposition is, you ain't leaving my house until you get married. But, I'm a naturally protective father. And, I promise you, brother, you have a girl, and your viewpoint and perspective of women, members of the opposite sex, completely change. That's how God just smacked me. He says, really? That's how. You screwed that up for many, many years. Let me give you 2 daughters, twins at that, right? And so, reminded me how much of a heathen I was, and some of the major mistakes I make as a man when it comes to members of the opposite sex and gender. And so, when we're looking at these parents, I got to give them at least they're not letting her live rent free. So you believe in the hard, but in their opinion, the hard is $200 a month.
Yeah.
or $300 a month. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, though, with me saying that, I also said this. Girls, Ruben, you got 3 options when you turn 18. Number 1, you enlist into the military. You get involved in the Air Force, you get enlisted in the Air Force, you're going to serve our country to some capacity, or you serve the Peace Corps. Either way, you're going to serve a nonprofit organization for the benefit of you understanding the value of service. So that's number 1. Number 2, you go to college. Now, I'm not going to pay for all your college. I can afford to pay for all your college, but I'm not going to pay for all of it because we don't believe that you can value things you get for free.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to pay for half. We'll pay for half, you pay for half, but you might get in student loan debt. You might have to get some jobs to pay for your college, but you're going to pay for your college education at least 50%. Or number 3, speaking of jobs, you just get a job. So all 3 of my older kids never went to college, right? And they're all working. They're all working because they asked me again, Dad, should I enlist in the military? I said, yeah, depends on what branch of service, and this is how you got to equip yourself to be a light amongst darkness in the military, especially in this woke military, in this woke administration. So obviously the military is facing the elements of woke culture, even in the military, which completely annoys a lot of veterans, me specifically. So those are the options at 18. Second one, I had the same point as you, bro. Life is hard. Teach them hard. You might as well learn it early right now.
Yeah.
Because your hard early in your life has created you to become the man you are today.
Correct.
Right?
100%.
And right now, you're not going to change that. You wouldn't change that.
No.
Okay.
0.
And number 3, I appreciate what they're doing on social media. I hope it's just for social media interaction, but not for people's input.
Yeah.
Like, get people's input, but not really getting people's input. Kind of cool, kind of fun on social media. But think for yourself. Model your thoughts and decisions based on those living a life that you want. And I think sometimes as parents, we think that we're in this bubble that we can't seek out other parents and other examples of success. Just how we seek mentors in business, you got to do the same thing as a parent and seek wisdom from those who've been there, done that too as well. And by the way, every time, every era, every generation will have its hard. This generation is going to have its hard. We had a hard generation, the generation before. But if you want to know a really hard generation, it was a World War II generation. Imagine being 18 years old, you were drafted into the military. You didn't have a choice. You were joining the Army or the Marines or whatever it case may be. Vietnam, you're drafted into the military. Thank goodness we haven't had a draft since the Vietnam era. That's 60 years ago. We haven't had a draft into the military. But, you got to figure out the life that you want, which has me think again. Your thoughts on kids. Let's go to the next topic here. This person here is talking about raising their own children now, but they're parenting now without their own parents. They don't have their own grandparents. Let's kind of future play your situation real quick, Milton. You got kids one day. By the way, how many kids you want? Inquiring minds want to know. How many kids does Milton Alvarez want for the Alvarez tribe?
Started with 1.
Yeah,
Started dating. I got convinced to do 2. Right now, I'm at a point where I'm able to do 4 max mentally. Max.
Okay, 4. Okay.
Mentally.
But you started with 1.
Started with 1, and as I get older, the more I'm more growing to the idea of having more kids. And as the older I get, I'm becoming more okay with having little girls.
Yeah.
Since I was young, I always wanted boys.
Yeah.
I always thought it's easy to raise boys.
Yeah.
You teach them how life is hard, teach them how to work. When they start hitting puberty, hand them a box of condoms. They're good.
Mm-hmm.
That was my thought process, right? And with little girls, like, no.
Yeah.
You're staying under my supervision until you graduate college. You're
Yeah.
not going out. I need to make sure. I need to know your location at all costs,
Yeah.
at all times. And again, because I know how men are and how boys are, and I understand how my early 20s play a big role on my mindset on how women are treated. So again, that's why, in my late 20s, I'm more in the headspace of knowing what route I want to take and what I should and shouldn't do with women nowadays when it comes down to respecting their boundaries and XYZ, right? Yeah. When it comes down to the topic of actually having kids and not raising them with parents, unfortunately, my dad passed away in 2016 from stomach cancer. And one of the biggest things he would always tell me is, I can't wait for you to have your first child so I can hold him, I can babysit him, and we can have, 3 generations, you, myself, and then your kid. And when he passed away, it was a consistent, you made me a promise that you were going to be there for my firstborn. You made me a promise that you were going to show up for my first real big man job, for my first property I was going to buy, for my marriage, for my first child, for my firstborn, and you were going to be there for X amount of time. You're not there. And then that was something that I always had an argument with God in my deceased father. And now my mom's alive. She's 75 years old, and for the last since my dad passed away, for the last couple of years, she's been consistently asking me, "Where's the girlfriend? Do you have a girlfriend yet?" She literally called me half an hour before the podcast.
Really?
Hey, how's Dallas? Good. Have you found a girlfriend yet? Any potentials yet? Are you gay? What is it that I need to know?
I can make sure I answer that question properly. He's not.
I'm not gay.
He's not. He's straight.
100%.
Straight as a ruler, man.
Straight as a ruler, baby. So now that's in the back of my head, and then the conviction of, hey, son, mijo, I don't know how many years I have left. My health is declining. I'm getting older. It's getting harder to move. I'm starting to forget things. I want to see you with at least one child before I pass away. Yeah. So a selfish part of me saying, okay, I'm seeing how this game is being played. The longer I wait to have a child, the longer my mom's going to hold on. The longer I wait to get married, the longer my mom's going to hold on. But I've seen a lot of stories where the moment someone has their firstborn, or they end up getting married, or the mom or the dad or the parents see their child exactly where they wanted, they say, all right, God, I see what I want now. I'm satisfied. Now take me away.
But you got to give them another milestone. I can't wait for you to be for the next birthday. Yeah. The first birthday, the first steps, the first graduation. Exactly. So you got to keep doing it. You got to go with the next. I'm finding I'm doing that with my dad. Hey, Dad, blah, 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 I'm done, maximizing. Hey, Dad, And so, here's what this article says about raising parent with heart. Number one, parenting without parents is a constant reminder of loss. Yeah. Right? I mean, I'm empathizing your situation. I just couldn't imagine it. I'm looking at my kids, I'm bouncing my neck. I loved, man, Dad's not here. And like, whoa, I'm glad I have my dad there. Yeah. And by the way, last week you saw me with my dad. We took him for his birthday. And for the first time ever, my father's getting a custom-made, clothes. Yeah. Took him my tailor. And my dad says, Dad can't really talk. My mom's like, he doesn't know how to express. That's my dad. The whole time we were there, bro, he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to you. He was talking to my mom, but he doesn't talk to me. Yeah. It was the hard part. Yeah. It's like, Dad, talk to your son. My dad doesn't talk to his son, but he talks to his mom through me, through her to me, through you to me. That's my whole life. That's my pops. Either way, I'm glad he's talking. I don't care if it's indirectly, but I'm glad he's talking. Second one, the void of history and support is deeply felt. I remember, bro, when I had an appointment, and Ruben's maybe 4 or 5. I said, Dad, can you watch my kids? My dad's like, it's not my kid. Like, come on, Dad, it's like your grandkid. From there going, I said, Dad, I'm never asking everything ever again. Back to the point of not leaning on your parents. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But in a way, I'm glad my dad didn't allow me to use him as a babysitter. Mm-hmm. Now, for guys out there, you might have a different relationship with parents. I'm just saying what worked for me. And because it forced me to level up my business to make sure I can hire a babysitter, hire some actual professional help. Because, I felt the pain of my dad not saying, it was a hardcore, no, I'm not the babysitter. And number 3 here says seeking understanding and acceptance in a world with living parents. Conversating about other relationship with parents become painful reminders of our own loss. I mean, I couldn't imagine, a situation where, at least you have your mom around. This person here in this article doesn't have it, doesn't have anybody to reach up to. So they got to kind of, I guess, about our grandparents. Had me reflect on what the Bible says about a godly home. It's in Colossians chapter 3, starting with verse 18 all the way to chapter 4. But I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's really an outline, and so I'm going to summarize it. So basically the role of a wife, role of a husband, and the role of children. Okay? And furthermore, it's also the role of everybody around that, bond servants, everybody in there, and grandparents that's inside there. And if you look at the Christian home, you got mom and dad, and you also have their mom and dad. Mm. And then the other side's their mom and dad. So really, how many people are raising one child? 4 up here, 2 here. That's 6 total. 6 kids raising one, and this person's got none. So now the kid doesn't know the values and principles taught forth by the grandma and grandpa. Because, Milton, would you agree with me? Sometimes there's ways you can get around to family members, but maybe an uncle or an aunt or maybe one of your other cousins can talk better to somebody in your family, and they are able to explain your point.
Yeah, 1,000%. I agree with you on that point specifically. Going back to one of the points you were making, how and I'm interested in this because I know some of the guys who are actually commenting on here. That's a question that a lot of these men have, stepping away from the business aspect of what you just spoke on. You said that because your dad said, "Hey, I'm not going to babysit your child. This is your child, not my child," and you said that actually helped me level myself up in business. So let's take business out of the picture for a second. So although it helped you level up, although it helped you become a stronger man, more of a callous man, I would say, and callous can go either both negative or positive, and made you step up in your game so that we can finally hire a professional helper.
Yep.
2 parts here. One, how do you think that could potentially have affected you mentally and emotionally when it comes down to the relationship that you have with your father, in correlation how you have that relationship with Ruben? And also another one that I think someone just mentioned is, do you think it'd be better to be able to have someone raise your children who are actually family members, aka grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, versus hiring a professional babysitter?
Yeah. So, okay, 1 or 2 ways I could have taken that. I could have taken the blame game route, the entitlement route. You're entitled to babysit because you're the grandfather. I could have taken that route. You're entitled to. Versus the empowerment route. I chose to take the empowerment route. Instead of getting bitter, I got better. So 1 or 2 choices I guess we have at that standpoint, because then you're also going to find out what values and principles your family stands for. Maybe I vowed having a grandfather because I didn't have a grandfather. Yeah. So both on both sides, they're both in the Philippines, and by the time I got to know them, they already had passed away. And me getting to know them was maybe a phone call here and there, and knowing of them, and not really having lunch with them, not really having dinner with them, but just knowing of them. I'm in this situation. I can only imagine what my parents were dealing with, trying to raise me in a new country, trying to speak a different language and different customs and different traditions. But I think we have to give our children the best that we know how, and then something, and go the extra mile with our kids. So, for example, I'm already volunteering. Hey, Ruben, listen, I want you to come to Dallas because I'd rather you raise my kids closer to me than in a completely different city and state, where if push comes to shove, I can be there somehow, some way. Here's the limitation I have with financial support, because you got to figure that stuff out. You're a man in your own house too as well. You're the one that decided to have a kid, not me. But you got to figure this stuff out too. But I know my kids. Every time they've asked me for money, I've had to give them the tough answer. And they say no, or Papi, we get it. Fine, I apologize. Now they learn how to ask me, Papi, I got an idea. I got this opportunity. If I do this, will I get that? Much better. Yeah. Great. Now I'm your partner, right? Not your ATM, right? And so that's to answer your question. That's how it's helped. But I just follow God's design of Bible. Again, Colossians chapter 3 lays out the outline of a godly design of Christian home. And so from that going forward, you gotta figure out what your values and principles you stand for, and it's going to be refined. This is a moment where you can't. By the way, that's why we're very much in saying this is our way of doing it. How you do it is between your relationship, you and God. You got to figure stuff out too as well. For example, if your Christian daughter decides to befriend and boyfriend a Muslim man, an atheist man, a Jewish man, a Mormon man, yeah, what's your next move, right? So these are things that we have to forecast going down the road. But man, I'd love to unpack this some more, but we got some other things here we want to talk about. Speaking of providing for your family, Shark Tank here, Barbara Corcoran has made millions and spent her millions, including giving half of it away. Let's look at this Fortune article here. But she said in this article, I've never saved a dime. She's blown through her cash, and come back here real quick, Jordan. And she said, this mindset, she says, I never saved a dime my whole life. This mindset was influenced by my mother, who raised 10 children on a tight budget and taught her that money is meant to be spent. Back to grandparents, back to the values and principles. Now, this is a shark who was raised in this mindset, not ever saving a dime. Now, we'll go to my next point of this article. After selling her real estate business for $66 million in 2001, Corcoran immediately was set out to spend the proceeds. She gave half her money to her family, friends, education funds, and charities, explaining if you can't spend it, if you spend, money comes back to you. That's assuming that you have a business.
Yeah.
Because you can be consumer, but never be a producer to generate value versus spending value. She strongly opposes hoarding and saving money as she believes it could take my spirit away. So despite investing in approximately 150 businesses, Corcoran missed making money only about 10% of them. Despite facing financial challenges and almost going bankrupt 5 times, Corcoran has always managed to bounce back, driven by her mother's advice during the 1991 recession. Don't worry about the money. It's a waste of time. What's your initial thoughts of this?
I think it's a scary way to live. I was actually in this realm for many years, and it's not comfortable. And I think a lot of this, well, at least from my end, a lot of the excessive spending came from a lot of the anxiety that I was facing in life. Like, I'm anxious because I'm broke.
Yeah.
So let me go waste more money because it's going to release a little bit of dopamine in me because I'm buying things that I like, or it's going to distract me from what I have going on at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, in my early 20s, I'd be maybe like, I'd probably have around $300 in my bank account, and then on the weekend I'd go out and spend maybe half, or if not more, or if not, end up in the negatives. In the moment, I'm not thinking about it because it's releasing dope. It's releasing all these chemical reactions in my body, and I'm not thinking about it. I'm under the influence. But then here comes Monday, Tuesday, and I'm negative in my account, and it's a real anxious moment that you experience as a young adult or as a person. And that's why, again, I'm a big believer in being able to build a skill set that's going to be able to help you generate some form of money, which will then put you in a peaceful place mentally and financially. But definitely having multiple streams of income is what can create that cushion for you, right? And I think you say having that big
Amazon river cash
right,
flow.
and then having everything else kind of attached to that. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, this is really a horrible perspective to have, and a really horrible approach to have if that's your specific situation.
Yeah, if you've got a job, this is if you're just depending on an employer to pay you money, and that's a limited resource of income because you're trading time for dollars, horrible advice. Yeah. Let me do the flip side to it. I get it because she's a generator.
Yeah.
I get it because she's an investor.
Yeah.
I get it because she's a producer. So because she has confidence saying, listen, if I blow my money now, okay, all good. I'm going to just create another business.
Right.
You know? By the way, speaking of business, this got me a little bit curious. I want to do a little bit of research on the investments that these sharks have invested in on Shark Tank over the seasons. Have they made any money? So first of all, Damon John, who I have a relationship with. Damon John, we've interviewed him at his house in New York. He revealed that 80% of the deals he makes on camera never closed. 80% they shake hands. Okay, I'm investing in a company. They don't close. Forbes spoke to some of the business owners that made deals on Shark Tank, 112 of them. They discovered that 51% of those entrepreneurs who made deals on the show actually didn't close the deal. So back to the point. It looks good on camera, but behind closed doors, after the due diligence process, they don't exchange money. They don't agree to investing into the business. A few business owners admitted they went on the show not to gain investment, but to gain
exposure.
Exactly, and publicity for the business. Mark Cuban, Kevin O'Leary, and Damon John said sometimes deals going through because of the due diligence process done after filming. The richest shark is Mark Cuban, admitted to saying that he didn't understand why he signed up for some deals. That's because 25% of the deals he made were flops.
Yeah.
So even the Shark Tanks make mistakes. But but my point is this: they can blow the money.
Yeah.
Because they're confident knowing that I have a Mississippi River cash flow, I have a cash cow, I know how to make money. Matter of fact, speaking of John Rulon sent me a text. He's sitting down with the owner of Hobby Lobby, David Green. He's giving away, every year he gives away half of what he makes. Like, he's got so much money coming in, he gives half of it away. What a great place to be in. And people wonder, did the season of work-life balance and integration work out? Right? Or all in the season of your life work out? Because these guys, these entrepreneurs, they put everything they had for a period of time. And we talked about, revealed in one of these videos, 20 years into it, boom. Now they've got cash cow money-making machines. They can't stop having money come their way because they cultivated, they planted seeds, cultivated, planted seeds, cultivated, planted seeds, harvest, reinvest. And Barbara Corcoran, on the other hand, went on to tell us Forbes that the worst investment she ever made on Shark Tank was investing in a fast-talking cowboy selling exercise equipment who needed to lose 50 pounds. We'd like to assume Barbara might have lost money and lost weight on this deal. If you ever watch the show, Barbara Corcoran always, when everybody turns him down, she always comes out with her heart. If you ever watch the show, but for this reason I'm out. This reason I'm out. This reason I'm out. She's looking around. Okay, I'll make you a deal. Like Barbara Corcoran is always that person.
Yeah.
She invests with her heart, and she's a relationship type person, which can help you in many ways, but at the same time too potentially hurt you and get you to a point of why did I invest in that business? But the flip side is this: if you're confident in how you make money, you'll be just fine. Let's go to the next topic. Speaking of that, if people don't have things going right for them, they go to alcohol. What's the problem here with alcohol? Let's unpack that one.
Let's do it, man.
You have a bad day, things not going right. Where's my alcohol? By the way, I'm an investor in a whiskey company called Uncle Nearest, but it's not like I'm binge. You see me binge drinking, getting drunk all the time, even though I'm an investor in this alcohol company. I'm not. So, what's your thoughts on alcohol and the benefits or not benefits of it?
Well, obviously, when we're a younger age, we utilize that as an opportunity to be able to escape. And unfortunately, when we don't get a grip on certain vices, those vices get a grip on us. And the older we get, and we're consistently sticking to those specific routines and lifestyles, if we don't, I guess you can say, mature in certain areas, they're going to stick around for a long period of time. And then although we can probably get off of them for a short period of time, the moment we have some form of crisis, whether it's emotional, financial, mental, or any kind of crisis, we're going to revert back to that. And then that is going to really impact your livelihood in every possible area in a negative manner. But in this specific area, it's coming down to muscle loss and how it's going to impact your physiological health. And this is for all the people who work out, who want to build muscle, who want to build a summer body, who want to look a certain type of way, who want to maintain their muscle mass at a good level as you age. Obviously, as we age, we tend to lose muscle mass the older we get. Our hormones also fluctuate a lot because of the lifestyles that we live. So one of the for sure ways to help you not lose that muscle mass is from understanding that the consumption of alcohol is actually going to affect you. And here are a couple ways that alcohol actually does affect you in a negative manner. Number one, it's going to inhibit your protein synthesis. What that basically means is the process responsible for building and repairing muscle tissue, that's going to be completely inhibited. Number two, it's going to increase your cortisol levels, your stress hormone. High levels of cortisol can promote muscle breakdown and hinder muscle growth. So no matter how hard you're working out at the gym, no matter how great you're eating, if you're not sleeping and you're drinking on a consistent basis, you're going to hinder your muscle growth. Number three, nutritional deficiencies. Alcohol can interfere with absorption and utilization of proteins, with vitamins, particularly vitamin B complex, which is the vitamin that we all need to have the energy to continue on with our day, and also minerals such as zinc and magnesium. As we spoke about last week, magnesium plays a massive role when it comes down to physiological anxiety, comes down to rest and mood, and it impacts you on multiple levels, especially on a cellular level. It also impairs hormone production for a lot of my men, a lot of the guys who enjoy their old fashions, their whiskey neats and their bourbon neats and their Wellers and their makers and their cigars 3-4 times a week.
Amen, hallelujah.
Yeah. It's going to impair your hormones. And the harder you drink, the harder you go with the alcohol, because of whatever case may be, you're going to see your testosterone levels by men fluctuate and also drop. And testosterone plays a massive role in mental health, physiological health, muscle gain, and fat gain as well if you're not at a peak level. And the last two, also dehydration. Dehydration is one of the main things that can cause mental fatigue, can cause physiological fatigue, can cause a lot of muscle cramping, can cause a lot of brain fog. A lot of times we're not exhausted. We don't need the caffeine. We just need to be hydrated. And unfortunately, alcohol dehydrates the living hell out of you. And the final one, if you're the type of person who enjoys your alcohol with a chaser, that's going to increase your calorie consumption, which then also increase the amount of calories you're consuming on a weekly basis, daily basis, and then you're going to see that beer belly or that body composition completely change against you. So definitely, I'm not going against alcohol, but definitely suggest being moderate with what you consume and the amount that you consume. And if you catch yourself consuming more than you should, I definitely suggest seeking professional help.
I'm glad you said that word, moderation. So
Yes.
I went to I just Googled it. Jordan, can we take a look at my screen, please? Thank you. So National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. So they actually define the drinking levels.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's drinking in moderation? So let's define, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, okay, adults of legal drinking age can choose not to drink or drink in moderation by limiting intake to 2 drinks or less in a day.
But that changes. Think about it this way too. You're 6'3". You're 6 foot. He's 6'3", 240 plus pounds
With no heels.
with no heels,
Okay.
right? Because knees aren't done. Versus taking a 5'2" man weighing about $150.
Gotcha.
So that's going to completely change based off of your stature, your size, your weight, how much you eat, and also are you? I don't want to say immune to alcohol, but there's some people who just take one drink and they're already feeling it.
Right.
Right.
Binge drinking is consuming 5 or more drinks in about 2 hours. You're binge drinking. That's party drinking. Okay. I've never been there before. I've observed it many times.
This man said observed.
Observed
Observed
it
his
from-
own hand.
I observed it from the bottom of a beer mug myself. Now, heavy alcohol use for men is consuming 4 more drinks on any day or more than 14. I feel better.
Yeah.
I feel stronger. So, you know, it's to me, I know I pair cigars with whiskey. It's just kind of like the thing to do. But I will say this. When I don't drink alcohol, I actually feel better, stronger, more alert. And right now, these days, I'm 49 years old. If I drink more than 2 drinks, 3 drinks, I'm going to feel it the next morning.
So let me ask you, why do we do it? If we feel better without it, why do we do it?
Yeah, good question. I mean, for me, I guess it's an acquired taste. By the way, if you told me right now I don't have to take alcohol for the rest of my life, I'd be fine. So, but why do we do it? I think for me, oddly enough, it's an acquired taste. I learned to acquire over the last 20 years of my life, smoking cigars with whiskey or tequila, old fashioned. It goes with, just like eating a steak. It goes with, steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
It's just for me, milk and cereal, I guess. But I know where you're going. You're about to corner me here.
Just asking a question, man.
But it just goes along with what I've done, I guess.
We should move on to the next slide before this becomes a therapy session. So, come on,
I need Jesus. All right, here we go. Speaking of I need Jesus, let's take a look at this article here. Let's see here. This one right here. Most Americans don't like Christian celebrity culture. Megachurches study. All right, so let's unpack this. Let's unpack this article. So, a recent study conducted by Barna Group indicates that while 71% of Americans have a positive view of Jesus, majority, including Christians, hold negative opinions of various aspects of Christian culture. According to the study, only 16% of adults and teenagers view megachurches positively. Now, let's discuss a megachurch. What's a megachurch? 1,000 people? Is that if we were to define a megachurch?
I would say so.
Because in Chicago we had these neighborhood churches, smaller churches, maybe 150, 200 people in there.
Max.
Right. Let's see. Megachurch defined. Megachurch defined is 2,000. 2,000 or more people in average weekend attendance is considered a megachurch. Okay. You have multiple services, and so when I was growing up in Chicago, I heard of what's it called? Willow Creek?
Willow Creek?
Yeah,
Willow Creek.
And everybody was telling me about Willow Creek. Oh my gosh, it's a concert and blah, 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 blah. It's like a full-blown production. And we're talking about the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
And God bless them, Bill Hybels and those guys that built a Willow Creek church. That was one of the first mega churches I heard of in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s when I started understanding church and building my faith. But I never went there. Here's why I never went there. I felt I went there and I was just going to, cool. The production was amazing. The music is amazing. But I just felt there's no, I guess, for lack of a better word, there's no intimacy with the pastor or with people to the left and to the right of me. I get to the point where I go to church, and if I got to know some of the people at the church, I'll see a church on Sunday. I'll see a church on Sunday. I'll see a church on Sunday. You go to mega church, bro, were you at church? Yeah, bro, I was in section C, row 35, right? Because either they're running late, their normal seats taken. You go to what's the church in Houston?
Lakewood?
Yeah, Joel Osteen's church.
The average weekly attendance is 43,000 people.
Crazy. That's a
43,000.
That's a football game. It's a basketball game. It's a full-blown professional team that you're playing and that you're watching playing. So
it literally looked like a stadium.
Unreal, yeah.
Ridiculous, man.
That's crazy, bro. Lakewood Church.
Lakewood Church.
You know, you go to that church, amazing ministry, right? So let's go Lakewood Church, images. So yeah, Jordan, can you take a look at my screen here? This is Lakewood. Look at this is 10 years ago. Right? You could be at church every Sunday, sit in the same section. If your friends run behind late, you lose them. So I'm just curious, for those of you guys watching this podcast, either live or watching the replay, what do you prefer, mega churches or local neighborhood churches? Maybe 200, 300, 400. What type of church gets too big for you? The church we go to here in Frisco, Elevate Life, they got multiple services, beautiful campus, beautiful property. Love the pastor, Keith Kraft. I don't think it's too big for me. I think it's just right. I can see the bigness of it, but I can see also the intimacy. A youth pastor one time broke it down to. He says the bigger a church gets, the smaller it has to become. And I'm recognizing with my own business, because you can get lost in a sauce very quickly in a mega church unless you get plugged into a small group. In our office, unless you take a role in the office, you can be running your own agency in our office, but never have a leadership role and never get edified in front of everybody, but you can be part of a big office. So the bigger you get, the smaller you have to play, the more proactive you have to be as a believer, and not wait for a pastor to tell you need to plug into that, plug into this, because sometimes people aren't thinking for themselves. So you have to be more proactive if you go into a mega church in that regard. So a lot of people here, let me tell you something else. One thing I didn't like, personally for me, is this aspect of, where is it here? Have you heard of this Preachers of L.A.? Okay? So there's a reality show in 2013 called Preachers of L.A. So let's take a look at my screen here. Kirk Franklin is a worship leader, recording artist, award-winning recording artist, disappointed Preachers of L.A. I've been suggesting that reality show turned people away from God, because people saw these pastors, and the pastors regarded themselves as basically celebrities. Bro, they'd be rolling 64 Chevy Impalas convertible, looking like a gangster, like decked out on switches, right? Low riding. And these guys would be decked out in Gucci, and, you know, it's one thing to be decked out, but they're boastful about it. So you've been to church, you've led men, yeah. You've preached the word. What's your thoughts on being a celebrity type pastor?
Here's the thing with that, I think so. This might be a little bit controversial. One thing I've seen amongst the years, it does say that, when you become faithful to God, God will give you a platform. But my problem is a lot of these quote unquote celebrity pastors and preachers, a lot of these people are just utilizing the platform for their own personal exposure, their own personal endeavors, and that within itself is what gives any church that preaches about God wants to prosper you. Mm-hmm. They immediately revert that into the prosperity gospel being this evil approach to church. When in reality, the true definition of what the prosperity gospel is giving the people the understanding that their identity is depending on who God says they are. Mm-hmm. And who we are in God, who we are in Christ, is not meant to be consistently in the lower spectrum of defeat. We're meant to do more. We're meant to elevate. We're meant to have a platform so that way we can help more people out. The more we grow, the more people we pull up. The more we grow, the more influence we have. The more influence we have, the more people we're able to reach out to. Mm-hmm. It's the people who utilize these platforms to have their own gain, their self-centered gain, a.k.a. these preachers, a.k.a. these celebrity pastors, preachers who utilize it for their own monetary advantages, for their own personal endeavors, and they utilize God's name in vain and utilize God's name for their own advantages of trying to make more money and get more exposure.
It's also it could be an identity thing too as well, because it looks boastful. When I see Preachers of L.A., it looks boastful. They're not honoring, like, you want to shine for God, not shine for you. Yeah. So Jeremiah 9, chapter 9, verse 23 says, let not the wise boast of their wisdom. So even if you're wise, don't boast your wisdom. Yeah. Or the strong boast of their strength. Like, for example, Pastor Keith Craig has these feats of strength. Yeah. Bending metal bars and smashing bricks.
I've seen that, yeah.
Right? But he boasts God and gives glory to God in those acts of strength. Yeah. Right? In your acts of wisdom, you praise God. You worship God. You don't not ask people to worship you. It also says in Scripture, or the rich boast their riches. Okay? Is it boastful? Now, people give me a knock. Matt, will you drive a Rolls Royce? Well, guess what I want to do with that Rolls Royce? For me, it's a marketing tool to attract eyeballs to a movement, to an area of literacy that many people feel illiterate in an area that attracts people in a position of where they're at. So, for example, can I see a pastor rolling up in a 64 Chevy Impala drop top? Cool, right?
Yeah.
But if you're acting like a thug and you're giving glory upon yourself versus giving glory upon God and attracting people to the word, people are going to be repelled by that.
1,000%.
Because then they're going to feel, bro, you're using your church to do what? To get you rich.
1,000%.
Right? To get you rich. And so, boast is also defined as talking with excessive pride and self-satisfaction about one's achievements, possessions, or abilities. Why? How do believers feel about this? The only reason why we have achievements, the only reason why we have possessions or abilities is because God gave that to us. It wasn't us. So even for me, I'm mindful. I'm humbled knowing that when much is given, much is expected. What God gives, God can also take away. And so, faith, here's also the annoying part about this. I got a couple of thoughts here. The annoying part about this, and looking at mega churches, is also faith also requires having discipline. But trust is a power. You have to trust in a power that's greater than you. So if you're going to this church, you have to understand, okay, cool, big church, well, all right, but what's the real faith you should have? It should be a faith in the pastor, should have faith in the worship band, right? Or should be faith in God. Now, if you have that faith in God, guess what these mega churches are going to do too as well? Faith means having discipline. It means you have to trust in a power that's greater than yourself. That's having faith. Number two, again, you get lost in the sauce of a mega church. The bigger you get, the smaller you have to be. The smaller you have to be as a church to be proactive, and as a ministry, leading your church and making sure people get plugged into those small ministries. For example, I give hats off to Pastor Garrett Unkelbach. He was a guest here on the show. And part of that church getting bigger, they have different pastors assigned a different division of the pastor. His job as a Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL, is to deal with men in the church. He's got a mighty men ministry. Pastor Garrett Unkelbach, shout out to you, doing a fantastic job with your men's ministry. Every Saturday morning that I'm in town, I'm in there at 7 a.m. They have 300 men showing up at 7 a.m. 300 men. And by the way, their boys are coming out. Their sons are coming out. He starts it off with push-ups. Mighty men here at Elevate Life Church. This leads me to my third point. People don't want to feel that pastors are getting rich off people's pain, suffering, and vulnerability. However, that being said, in a recession, ministry becomes a job opportunity. Watch when this happens. When more people get laid off, guess what people say? Well, I'm going to go into ministry. I'm going to become a pastor. Bro, we know in the hood, right? West side of Chicago, worst parts of town. What's every block have in the hood? They got a check cashing station. They got a liquor store. They got what's right next to it? Harold's Chicken, JJ Fish, and a church. Bro, every block. You go down into the hood, you're going to find that these neighborhoods, nothing but churches, nothing but fish spots, chicken spots, check cashing stations. It becomes a ministry. That's what people despise about faith in church. So for those of you that's out there that you're seeking a relationship with Christ, that you're seeking a relationship to a greater next version of you, and that you need a Savior, my prayer to you is don't look at the church, look past the church. And you can't find a church that vibes, maybe that may not be a church for you. Find yourself a Bible-centered church that talks from the gospel, not from their motivational speech. So as we wrap up, bro, great show. Any final thoughts, man, before we wrap up episode deuce?
I actually want to wrap up with maybe 2-3 things to look for when looking for a church. I know a lot of these men and women on here, whether you go to a church or not, what are 2-3 things that we as men and women or people trying to follow Christ that we should look for before attending a church and saying, all right, this is definitely the church for me?
One more time, how do you define that?
So, for you being in a position that you're in, you have a family, you have a wife, you have kids, you have people that you're leading in business and outside of business. What are 2-3 things that you look for before saying this is the church I'm going to attend?
I got to make sure that pastor is just as fired up about being a pastor as I am about being an entrepreneur. And they also understand there's a relationship between being a pastor, between the priests and the kings. You're a king. I'm a king. Men in business, men that are leading their careers and lives in their businesses, they're kings. There's a relationship between the church and the kings, right? The pastor brings the vision, and guess what the kings do? They provide the provision, right? That's my design. I want to make sure I bring the people and the money and the resources to make sure that this vision that this pastor has, which is given by God, is magnified and exalted and taken to the next level. That's what I feel. And that pastor has to recognize that too as well. And the pastor isn't poo-pooing people that are making money. Can't tell you how many times I've been to a church where the pastors are belittling people in that church that make a lot of money, right? Or belittling people that are not tithing and giving, and people are without, hey, by the way, I know times are tough. Here's the expression of tithes. Here's the expression of when to give when it's tough. But no, man, if you don't tithe, you don't love God. And they guilt people into tithing and giving, right? And so I don't like that aspect too as well. I like to making sure that there's plenty of opportunities for many people at whatever however they want to go spiritually can grow. I love making sure that they believe heavily in the nuclear family, husband and wives getting together. They don't believe in, regardless of what the world is doing, they don't conform to the patterns of the world, that they stay solid to the word.
Yeah. Appreciate that, man. That gives me a little more clear for myself as well. And this is not something that I want to state. This is something that I want. This is a door I want to open up to all the viewers, whether you're watching live now or whether you'll be watching this video whenever you watch it. I want to be able to open the doors to my specific life, to me specifically. And if there's anyone out there who needs someone to pray for them, needs prayer on any level, whether it's for family, for business, for yourself, if you feel like you're going through a mental, emotional struggle and you just can't make ends meet and you just feel like you need some form of guidance and you need someone there in your corner to kind of help you and guide you and someone to pray with you and pray for you, you can easily find me on social media, SMB Performance _ or if you have my number, it's also on my Instagram page or my Facebook page, Milton M. Alvarez. Feel free to reach out at any point in time. If you have my number, please text me, call me. You're not alone. You're not going to be alone. We're not meant to go through life alone. And whatever it is that you need, just know that God's with you, has been with you, and is always going to be with you. And you have someone here willing and wanting to pray for you and pray with you through the process of this thing that we call life.
Amen to that. By the way, if you guys want to take a book of the Bible to process and understand how God feels about money, possessions, wealth, happiness, prosperity, my recommendation is you open up the Bible to Proverbs. Proverbs talks about wisdom, understanding, what your standpoint is on finances. Crazy scriptures in there by the wisest and richest king who ever lived. Which, by the way, we're going to be relaunching the Money Smart Guy Bible series on Sunday nights at 6 p.m. And we're going to start off with Ecclesiastes. We did Proverbs before. Now we're going to go into his other book, which is Ecclesiastes. That's going to be starting not this Sunday, but next Sunday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time when we're launching those episodes. Bible studies, Money Smart Guy Bible studies on Ecclesiastes beginning a couple weeks here on Sunday, 6 p.m. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts, your questions, your feedback. Please drop them in the comment section below. Anybody, especially you want to give a shout out to, they've been chatting with us on the live chat.
Number one, always Miriam Rivera, man. She's been
great, man. TT Miriam.
TT Miriam. Brandon Marquez, appreciate my buddy from Chicago jumping in.
Laquan was out there too.
Mr. Laquan Butler. And we have Andra. She's also been very faithful since the very beginning, whether she's working or not working. She's consistently listening to us. Ricky Rivera. And then also, I think this is Mark, if I'm not mistaken, Legacy Wealth.
Marcus Sarah, Liddell Bugs. What's up?
Appreciate you guys jumping in, man. So everyone who's been watching, and especially the people who've been watching us in the very beginning when we only had 1 or 2 viewers, and we appreciate your patience and your grace and giving us the platform to add value to your lives. Yeah, we thank you guys for getting us to cross over 1,000 subs on YouTube, and we're growing, we're expanding, we're excited. We started this from scratch, and we're committed to you and making sure there's a podcast out there to help you process faith, finances, fatherhood, fitness, all in one podcast. With that being said, guys, appreciate your thoughts, comments, questions, feedback. Please put it in the comment section below. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit subscribe, hit like, let everybody know that you're watching the Millionaire Goals podcast. That being said, from Dallas, Texas, on behalf of Milton Alvarez, I'm your money smart guy. And until we meet again, continue to live smart, continue to love smart, and be money smart today. See you next week. Bye-bye.